Google today. So my name is Casey Bennett. My daughter Ireland is in third grade now with Miss Kelly, and we have been here at Denison since she was a 3-year-old. And I'm a member of Families of Denison Montessori, our PTO. And by the way, Christina's saying that she's waiting to be let in, not to like derail that, but I'll send her a link if maybe we have the wrong link. But want to welcome everybody and super excited for this year and all that we're going to achieve.
Thanks, Casey. I don't see her waiting. So you want to call on the next person though, Casey?
Oh, sorry. I'm on my phone. So I'm like, who can I pick? How about Joan? Or if not, Mary Beth.
I'm Joan Rademacher. I teach special education, and this is my 11th year at Denison. And I'm going to call on Mary Beth. I see she just arrived. Was I wrong?
Let's go by.
No?
Oh, she was there and she left, and it looked like she had Jennifer with her. So, yeah, so let's see.
Is Christy here yet?
Yeah, she is. Let's go ahead and call on her.
I'm Christy then.
Hi, I didn't realize we were doing math, so this will be fun. Hi, I'm Christy Berger. I'm an upper elementary teacher. I'm also a proud mom of 2 Denison alumni who are now college graduates. And I have been at Denison for 20 years. That's a long time. Let's see. I'm looking for someone who is not on my screen. Jennifer, are you able to talk now? You ready? She's still working on.
Yeah, they're working out the technical differences. We have, I'm probably going to say this wrong again, Alicia, Jacqueline, or Rebecca, I think.
Or three Natalies. How about Rebecca?
Hi. Sorry, I'm on my phone. That's why my video is not off. I just got off work actually. But I am a parent. It's our first year at Denison. And my daughter's name is Madeline. She's ECE 4. So it's first year at DPS too. So just getting a feel for everything. Love to be involved. So
thank you for being here this evening.
Yeah. And then who has not, because I'm on my phone, it's a little different. You said Alicia hasn't gone yet?
Yep.
Alicia.
Hi, I'm Elisha, new Denison parent. My child Levi just started kindergarten this year. I saw this meeting in the email last week and thought I wanted to check out what the community was doing. So thanks for having me.
We're glad you're here. And I think we have Jacqueline left.
Hey guys, Richard and Jacqueline are here. We're sharing our phone. We got one kid at Denison, his first year. He's in Miss Mary's class. He's ECE 3, and we're really excited.
Thank you. I'm glad you're both here. And I know that Mary Beth has put a couple of things in the chat box. Yeah, she wanted to say hello. You know, Casey, she's not showing up. It's not popping up as someone who's waiting to join. So I'm not sure what's going on with her link.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there's Jennifer.
Yeah, I met Mary Beth. She put me on her computer, so I don't know how this is coming in. But I just wanted to say hello to everybody and introduce myself. I'm Jennifer Lowell.
And your role at Denison is?
ESL in the mornings and art in the afternoons.
Thank you, Jennifer. And Mary Beth, do you want to introduce yourself as well while you're around?
She's not on CSC this year, but here she is.
She's not, but she's around.
Hi, I'm Mary. Well, we can't even see it. It's so bright in my house. I'm sorry. Hi, Mary Beth. I'm a lower elementary teacher. And is there anything else I was supposed to say? I'm sorry. Just hello.
Oh, that's good.
Just hello, welcome. I'm jealous that there's so many parents that are on CSC this year, and I'm not.
Yes, Mary Beth, I was a little surprised when I saw you pop up because I was like, Mary Beth finished her term at CSC last year. But you're always welcome.
Jennifer's phone doesn't have Google Meet on it. So I just got my computer out. Yeah, sorry I'm late, everybody.
No, it's totally fine. And Christina, persistence pays off. Glad you joined us. We're just wrapping up introductions, Christina. So when you're ready, if you want to just share who you are and who you have at Denison, that would be great.
Had to figure out how to work the phone again. My name is Christina Madera. I have 4 kids at Denison, 5th, 4th, 1st, and 3-year-old. There you go.
There you go. Thank you, Christina. Glad you made it. All right. So we've got quite a group here today. I always like to try and start off our meetings just by sharing something that you can think of that is a celebration. And so I think we have a lot of things to celebrate. This has been a non-conventional year to launch, to say the least. But we're keeping our kids in school. They're doing a lot of really good quality work. I'm walking around the building and starting to see examples of their work posted in the hallways. So it's just been really great to see the children back in the classrooms with Montessori materials in front of them, collaborating with classmates, those ECE children learning the new routines and rituals in the primary classrooms. So I just think we have a lot to celebrate. So we'll just take a couple minutes. If there's anything that people want to shout out or celebrate, just unmute and go ahead and share. Christy, I see you.
I like to celebrate the fact that my children have not used computers except to do an assessment this whole month, and they're loving it.
Thank you, Christy. Other celebrations? Go ahead, Jennifer. Sorry.
I'm going to go ahead and shout this out, and then I'm going to have to go this evening. I double booked myself, but I wanted to celebrate the fact that we once again got the award for the Cherry Creek Art Festival. And about 2 weekends ago, Labor Day weekend, I took 4 students to the festival. It was really, really fun. They bought some really sweet, beautiful nature watercolors, and Brandy has been in the library today with me and Enrique this morning, changing around shelving, and we are going to try to overhaul the entrance a little bit, make it a little more streamlined, get the art up, and we're really excited. The kids did a lovely job.
Yeah, the selections they picked this year are beautiful.
They're just so sweet.
Absolutely precious. So I'm really excited to get those up and looking forward to the day that members of our community can come past the front door or front
Yeah, for sure.
do this for themselves rather than just taking our word for it. So,
and on that note, I will see you guys at the next CSC meeting.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks for stopping in for a few minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And for those of you that did come in a little bit later, I just dropped in a sign-in sheet in the chat box. So if you haven't already signed in, if you would just take a moment and sign in, that would be wonderful. Any other celebrations before we move on with our business for today's meeting?
I think it's kind of cool. The garden committee got started again. So not headed by me. Ellie Patricia gets credit for that, but we'll be working on that space as much as we can, it sounds like, for a while. So
yeah, they've got a schedule to work on Mondays, right, Lisa? Yeah, and that's really exciting. And I know before the teachers came back, when the office staff and I were working, Patricia came and knocked on the door one day and was able to share some zucchini and some green beans with us. So that was really sweet. So it's nice to see the garden getting back into shape, because that's really important to our school and the community. And it was really neglected when we sent everyone home from COVID in March of 2020. So it's really nice to see that getting back up off the ground again.
Can I also thank Lisa? You kicked butt yesterday. Like, you definitely did a lot of hard work out there. So it was nice to see that, and I really appreciate it, and just want to say thank you.
Thanks, Casey. All right, we will go ahead and move on. We've done our welcome, our introductions, and our celebrations. So we're doing our agenda review in the, let me drop this link in the chat box as well. Give me just 1 minute. The link to the actual agenda. One of the things we'll be doing moving forward, oops, it didn't copy. Let me try this one more time. User error, I'm quite sure. Okay. Let's try that one. There we go. There's the actual agenda, which we keep our agenda and our minutes all in one document. So we will be moving forward, having agenda review and approval of minutes from the previous meeting. But since we don't have, this is our first meeting of the year, we don't have any previous minutes to approve today. Then, sorry, too much jumping around on the tabs here. I'll jump into the principal report and some information I have to share. Then no one had reached out to me with any new business, or there was no old business from last year. We're just kind of starting fresh today in terms of discussion items. But then we'll review the date for the next meeting and closing before we wrap up. So with that being our agenda for today, I'm going to jump into CSC bylaws and roles. So one of the things that I'm reflecting on from last year is that last year was my first, for those of you who are new to Denison, last year was my first official year as principal at Denison. I had been a Learn to Lead resident, which is kind of like a principal in training, my first year here. But we kind of just jumped into CSC and ran with it and didn't necessarily take the time at the beginning of the year to think about our membership, some roles that we need to identify, and then just some information around agendas, minutes, and communication. So I wanted to take just a little bit of time and hit on some of that today. So the CSC bylaws are actually linked in this presentation, and I can drop those in as well if you give me just 1 minute here. They're long, they're lengthy. I think the things that are most important for us to know is that CSC is intended to be an opportunity for parents and members of our community to have time to meet with school personnel and really collaborate to think about some of the bigger picture planning and needs for our school. So we do a lot of work around the Unified Improvement Plan. So if you hear me refer to something called the UIP, that's shorthand for Unified Improvement Plan, which is our strategic plan that our instructional leadership team creates every year to make sure we're addressing the strengths and improving upon the areas of growth for our school. So that is one of the main purposes of CSC, as well as understanding and providing input for our school's budget and how we allocate our resources at the school. And that becomes particularly important over the winter months when DPS's budget cycle starts in January, and making decisions on how we are going to allocate the funding we receive from the district to support our major improvement strategies from our Unified Improvement Plan. It becomes like alphabet soup. But I want to make sure, sometimes I will just start throwing out abbreviations, but if you don't know what I mean by the abbreviations, just put it in the chat box and we will make sure to clarify, because sometimes I forget that not everybody knows. DPS is notorious for their acronyms. They actually have something they call DEAL, Denver's extensive acronym list, which is like a massive list of all the acronyms. So if I get stuck using jargon, please, please, please stop me, because I want to make sure everyone is understanding what we're talking about, okay? But with the CSC bylaws and knowing that we're working primarily to support the school's Unified Improvement Plan and making sure that we're making budget decisions that align with the Unified Improvement Plan, we are expected to have membership that consists of at least, I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 parents. I haven't opened the bylaws in front of me. I've got too much open as it is. 3 parents, at least 1 staff member. We can have 1 community member. We can have a paraprofessional if they would like to attend or join. And I think the important part to know is that the expectation is that we have more parents and community members than teachers. Teachers are an important part of this group, and it's really important to get their perspective on what's going on in the building. And that's why we have representation from primary, Maria, who's not here tonight, represents primary, lower elementary with Miss Jana, upper elementary with Miss Christy, special education with Miss Joan, and Jennifer representing both from the lenses of our specials teachers as well as our support teachers, since she does wear the ELD and the art teacher hats. So we have a lot of information coming in from teachers, so that's why it's important to have a lot of parents involved, right? Any questions so far? I'll pause there for just a minute. Okay, I don't see that we have any questions right now. So one of the things that we didn't do last year that I want to make sure we do today is identify 2 key roles for CSC so that we don't have to do this every time we meet. But CSC needs to make sure we have a chairperson and that we have someone who's a secretary, and that a secretary is responsible for recording the minutes and making sure that I can either get them into the Google Doc, sharing them with me via email, so that I can get them in there, or in following meetings, I can share the doc with you to make sure you have access if you want to just record minutes directly into the document itself. So I don't have to be the chairperson technically, but I'm certainly willing to do that role. If someone else would like to be the chairperson and wants to coordinate all the agendas and everything, I'm willing to let you do that. But we'll start with chairperson. Does anyone have interest in being the chairperson? Any of our current members who are here tonight? Christina.
Will you go over the role of that chairperson one more time? I glitched out, I think.
Yeah, that's fine. It really just runs the meetings, coordinates and schedules the agendas, communicates to all the CSC members what the agenda is going to be. If we need to have special meetings, calls those special meetings, really just takes charge of coordinating and planning and facilitating the meetings. Like I said, I'm willing to share if anyone wants to share, but if not, I nominate myself to be the chairperson, I guess. And so this is where the folks who are voting members, which are the staff members here, and Casey, Cole, Christina, Lisa, and Ellen. Go ahead, Christina.
I don't know the official words, but I put myself up for the position.
For chairperson?
Yeah.
Okay. So then if we have some discussion on or questions for Christina about her nominating herself and why she would like to be the chairperson of the CSC. No questions? Christina, I would just like you to ask why you're interested in being the chairperson of the CSC.
As of right now, I have the extra time to spare, and I feel that this is a good community committee to be heavily involved in, seeing as I have currently 4 children, and I really love Denison, so any way I could support you guys, I would just love to do it.
Okay. Well, we need to come to consensus. I did nominate myself before I realized Christina was going to nominate herself. So we have to come to consensus on who we would like to be the chairperson. So are there any questions or comments before we work on coming to consensus on that?
I just wanted to make sure Christina knows what she's in for, because it's a big job. Not that you can't do it, Christina. I'm sure you are amazing, capable. But just make sure that you know that you're also in charge of communication and how do I want to put this? I think Natalie listed it, but just know what you're getting in for, because it's a big job.
I hopefully understood everything, and I got that it was a big something to take on, And I feel with all of the kids being in school, it's something I could do right now this year.
And I would obviously, if this was something the committee would like to decide, I would obviously provide support to Christina to make sure she had access to what she needed. And it would require some coordination between Christina and I to make sure that she had the information to share with the committee members. But I'm fine with her being the chairperson, and I support her with that. Because actually having her do emails and stuff, I'd be fine with that. So if I'm willing to have Christina as the chairperson for sure. I see some nodding, but I can't see everybody. So for those of you who are new to CSC, because we do have several who are new tonight, both from the teacher side and the parent community membership side, if you are an official designated CSC member, if you could please just vote in the chat box, yay or nay, since I can't see everybody. Thanks, Cole. And so just as a reminder, thank you, Ellen. And am I saying it right? It's Ellen, right? Looks like Elin pronounced Ellen. Thank you. Right. Okay, thank you, Christy. Thank you, Jana. Okay, so let me just check my list here. 2, 3, 4. Okay, I think we have consensus. So Christina, you're our chairperson of our CSC. Thank you. That leads us to, we also need a secretary. So the secretary, as I was mentioning, is the person who's going to take minutes and record, either share them with me so I can get them in the Google Doc, or share them with Christina now, since she is the chairperson, and then would make any corrections during the meeting when we review agendas, or excuse me, when we review minutes. So does anyone like to nominate themselves for secretary?
I'll nominate myself, but I'm happy to hand it over. I've done it a few times last year, and I've been secretary on other organizations in the past, so I'm happy to step up. But if someone else wants to take that, I see Ellen's hand up, so that's fine too. That would be.
Cole, I'm happy for you to do it, but I'm also happy to take notes. So whatever works.
If you don't mind, I could step up, and then if you wanted to be backup in case I couldn't make a meeting or something like that.
Yeah, that's great.
If everybody supports that, I don't mind taking that role. Okay,
great. Great plan. So we'll have Cole as our secretary and Ellen as our backup. So, all right. So one of the things that we want to make sure we do is that we're sharing our agendas. I try to share them the Friday before the scheduled meeting, so that people have time to think about if there's new business we need to add to the agenda, or if there's old business that wasn't captured on the agenda, we make sure to include that. And so the way we'll set up the Google Doc, which I shared a minute ago, is that we'll just have the agenda at one part and then add the minutes at the top of that document, because then we share that document through Flyer with our CSC, because we are required as part of the CSC bylaws to have these meetings should be open and available to the public. And the minutes, back in the day when we used to have people in the building, the expectation was they were to be posted where people could see them. Now I just share the link out through Flyer so that people have the access and opportunity. And also they get posted on the Denison website as well. And that's where just having one Google Doc, once I post the link, they're always there so that people can just see them each month as we update them. And so we'll share the agendas the Friday before the meeting. We'll be reviewing minutes and sharing them publicly with our community. And then as far as communication, what I intended to share with this particular piece was just thinking around the fact that if you know you have a conflict, like we had a couple teachers tonight, just let me know. The bylaws do identify expectations for attendance around the CSC committee. And so if there is something that is, I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but if there's a certain number of minutes that, it's been a long day, I can't talk anymore. If there are a certain amount of meetings that are missed, then technically you can be excused from your responsibilities as a CSC member and replaced by either another staff member or another community member. Okay? So it's just really important just to keep that communication open and have that so that we can have the committee we need, especially when we are having to make decisions and we need everyone's voices represented. Any questions from any of the information on this particular slide?
I have a really fast question. Do we have a community member then on this current board?
Great question. No, we could add one. And it can be a parent that is also, you know, has a local business in the community and they can serve as that capacity. But it would be great to add someone who's representing the broader Southwest Denver community, but might have some connection to Denison. So if you think you know someone who might be interested or a parent member or someone who approaches you about that, we could certainly add another person to our CSC. Good question. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, I am going to move us on to our enrollment numbers. It's been a tough year for our enrollment. I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat it. We were projected at 300, and I was really optimistic we were going to get 300 or even a little over 300. And that is just K through 6. That is not, ECE is a separate piece of this whole equation. So please know that 300 number does not include ECE numbers, okay? But we were projected to be at 300 children. As of earlier today, we are at 272, which means we are under 28 students under our enrollment. Because of the way DPS does their budgeting, when we get our budgets in January, they give us a certain dollar amount per child. And so if we are projected to have 300 children, our budget is built around the fact that we're going to get all 300 of those children. And so we get all of that money. If we were to be over our projection, DPS would add to the money that we had. If we're under our projection, we're expected to return money to DPS. But this year and then last year have been very different and impacted because of COVID. And so we had a very robust waiting list at the beginning of August. I met with my school leadership team, which is my internal group, in August, and we had a wait list of 49 children, K through 5. And so we have been through that entire wait list. We currently are sitting at 0 children on the wait list, K through 5. And we still ended up 28 students below. And so a lot of this is due to families have moved. We don't have a sizable number, but we do have families that chose to attend the Denver remote elementary school. That will return to us or are planning to return to us. Their seats are saved here. So they should be returning to us next year. But just a variety of factors have led to this place where we're sitting with 28 children below enrollment. So you can see in this graphic here that financial impact is that we are expected to return almost $150,000 to DPS. There's a couple of relative bright sides, I guess, here. And one is that because of positions we did not fill last year, because of some decreased expenses in categories we didn't use last year, like we didn't have access to a lot of guest teachers, so money we had set aside last year for guest teachers, or money that we might have traditionally used for copies or materials we didn't spend last year. So you'll see that column where it says carry forward 137,896. We're sitting with that money in reserve. So for us to have this deficit of 28 students is not going to significantly impact our budget. And so that's one piece. I'll come to questions in just one second. So that's one piece. And then the second piece is that DPS has shared, and I quote, this is directly from an email I received from one of my budget support partners, is we recognize this year is much more challenging on every front. As a result, you will not be required to rib any positions, and rib stands for a reduction in building. So we will not be required to reduce any positions as a result of falling short of enrollment. I know that's something that always concerns people every year, both our staff and our community members, because we feel like we don't have enough people in place in the building. So to think about potentially losing someone is very devastating, and we are not, I want to just make it clear, that is not something we are facing at all. So we are looking at, with that carry forward amount, we are looking at a deficit of just over $11,000. I do think we're going to get a couple more kids added in. There are a couple of kids that haven't started yet, but that were offered spots. So I think this number may change. So that total number, that $11,000 number, hopefully may get a little bit smaller. But I met with my budget support partner yesterday, and we are either going to make a request for budget assistance to cover that $11,000 from DPS, or he felt confident based on some of the positions that we haven't been able to fill yet this year. For example, we have 3 para positions that are currently open, one that we're in the process of hiring for. Our music teacher, Dr. Tim Brown, decided to go to the virtual school, and so we haven't hired that music position yet. So we have some savings around, we actually offered a candidate that job today, and she accepted. So I'm really excited that we have a music teacher that we're going to get in the building, and she's wonderful. I'm really excited about her. But anyway, we have some savings because we haven't had to spend money on a music teacher yet this year. And we also have some savings because we had budgeted to have a nurse in the building 3 days a week. And because of DPS's nursing shortage, we're only getting 1 day of nursing services a week. So we're saving a little bit of money right now until DPS is able to increase our nursing support. So my budget support partner felt very confident that we can cover, if it does end up being that $11,000 deficit, that we can cover it without really having to cut any of what we had planned to spend for the year. So that, now I'm going to pause, and I know Casey's got her hand up, and then we'll take any other questions.
So Natalie, is this where, I know that we are officially a Title I school again this year. Mm-hmm. Does Title I affect this if we get more children? You know, I know like I need to fill out my, you know, application. But if we really push and get, you know, because even Alice the other day was like, well, maybe I'll give you the list. Would you be willing to call some families and try to get them to put their application? Would that affect that number at all?
No, it won't. It won't affect in this sense. What that affects is our designation as a Title I school. And so for those of you who are listening, who may not be familiar with what that means, Title I is based on the percentage of children you have enrolled in your school that qualify for free and reduced lunch. And so there are certain thresholds, and they were different last year because of COVID than they have been historically in DPS, and they haven't shared with me yet this year what the thresholds are going to be. But it's typically around 60%, is if you have 60% or more of your children that qualify for free and reduced lunch, then you hit that Title I designation. As a Title I school, then you begin to receive more money from DPS to provide services to your students. The higher your percentage of children who qualify for free and reduced lunch, the more money is added to your budget. Okay, so what Casey's asking about around that meal application that I keep beating that drum on, please fill this out, please fill this out, helps us figure out what tier we're going to be in that Title I piece. And so that's why it's really important. I'm a DPS parent, and I got an email today saying I haven't filled mine out yet at my daughter's school. So I'm on the naughty list. So I need to do that too. But does that answer your question, Casey?
Yeah, because I just, the only reason I asked, the year that we went on strike, what was that, 3 years ago, 4 years ago at this point? I sat in on that meeting when we had to rib $180,000 worth of positions, and 26,000 of it, if I remember correctly off the top of my head, was Title I, and I think we were only about 4 kids away from that number.
Yeah.
So that's just curious.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah. And then I see Christy has her hand up, and then after Christy, we will go to Lisa.
Natalie, I just wondered if you had any sense of whether we are alone in this enrollment issue, or are there other schools? And then the second part of my question is, has anybody in DPS mentioned that, gee, maybe Denison is too small? Because that's a real big worry. Okay,
Yeah.
just those two pieces.
So I'm going to say, I can't even remember your first question, because I think I was shaking my head pretty adamantly that we are not alone in this. This has been an ongoing issue for the Southwest region in particular, but there are other schools within DPS that are facing similar situations. And some of it stems from people continuing to decide to homeschool. Families have just had to move. As many people as we have had come into Denver, we've had many people leave Denver because the cost of living is extremely high here. So we are not the only school in DPS facing this, which is why DPS is very committed to helping students reacclimate to school this year, which is why that statement I read about not ribbing was across DPS. That was not just for Denison. So that was your first question. Second question, I know there's a lot of talk at the Board of Education around small schools. If that was going to impact us, we would know by now. So as best as I understand it at this point in time, any concern around small schools and potential consolidation or whatever DPS is going to decide to do is not going to impact Denison. And I lobbied for that really strongly last spring, because they look at this number, but they forget we have 100 ECE children as well. And our building is full. It's not like other Southwest schools that have 5 classrooms sitting empty. You know, we're using every space in here this year. So, so no, that is not a concern, Christy. And then I think Lisa was next.
I hope this isn't ignorant, but just to help my understanding a little better. I mean, you mentioned a couple of reasons. So it sounds like they primarily believe it to be from COVID and people going to homeschool and moving. Is there any other reason? And is there anything we can do about it? Or what are we working to try to just to help me kind of understand the situation a little better?
No, those are great questions, Lisa. We actually, part of what we did last year with CSC is we did some really intentional and strategic marketing to try and promote our school, to try and prevent this from happening. And we had a pretty good response. We did things last year, like we placed Google ads, we had Facebook ads, we sent out flyers and postcards about Montessori. And we had some really good response, had virtual back to school nights, did a lot of those things as part of the choice and enrollment process to try and prevent this from happening. And I was really, when I met with my SLT at the beginning of August, I was really confident that with our robust wait list of 49 children, that we wouldn't be facing this deficit. When I met with I went back and looked at my notes today, when I met with the SLT in August, at that point we were about 12 students down. But you know, when it came time to follow up with enrollment, people had moved, or, you know, we had a lot of people just moved to different parts of the metro area. And I think some of that speaks to the cost of living in DPS. I don't think it's an issue with our programming. And I feel very confident about that, but I know that's something moving forward. And Joan did a lot of work on this last year with Hannah. But just continuing our outreach as best as we can. We were really hoping this year not to have some of these same limitations with COVID and having people not be able to come do tours and such. But I do have a communications person identified in DPS who supported us with this last year. And I've already been talking to her about getting new pictures taken for our website so that we can update our website, and start thinking about what we need to do just to make sure we have a presence so that we have another strong choice season next year. Yeah, thanks for that input, Casey. And when we have families that have multiple children and they move, you know, instead of just losing one, you lose 4 at once or 3 at once, and then, you know, that hurts. So So Casey and Lisa, your hands are still up. I don't know if it's because you have additional things or they just didn't go down.
Sorry, I had one more thing, and
Yeah,
maybe
go ahead.
this seems just, I don't know. But just kind of thinking of ideas. Have we thought about putting anything on flyer that encourages families to let, and maybe that's silly, I don't know.
No,
but
it's not silly at all. There's no silly ideas.
Word of mouth, and I know I love the programming. It's amazing and really support this school. So just having, parents telling their friends about it and kind of getting out the word that way. I don't know if that's maybe an idea we want to put out there. Because that's kind of a strong voice if your friend tells you that this school is great and you should think about it.
I agree. And I think we have a lot of extended families here. We have kids that have cousins here. Like the little kids will run up to me at recess during Laurel. They're like, that's my cousin. I'm like, cool. So I think that we do have that word of mouth among families for sure. And I know there was outreach like on the Harvey Park Facebook page and some things like that. But I think that's part of the work that we can do this year is starting to think about that now. Last year, I feel like we were just kind of responding to so much, but that this year we can be really more intentional and starting with this earlier to start getting some of that messaging out before we get to January, before we get to choice. Whereas last year, we were just so behind the 8 ball all year. But I think that's a great idea. Ellen?
Yeah, just a quick question. Is it kind of this like spread across grades pretty evenly, or is there a certain space where you're struggling more?
It's really interesting. We were originally really high with kindergartners. Like we really try to keep around 60 kindergartners, and that's the number we were at, but we ended up dropping to around 53 kindergartners. And we were projected to be at 58 kindergartners this year. Hold on a second. I'm in a meeting. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. And then first grade is probably the grade that is lowest below where we were projected, and that's about 6 children. And then the rest of the grades are either like 1 or 2 or right at where they were projected. But I would say the biggest ended up being kinder first. Other questions around this particular topic?
I just have a comment that I've heard of a couple different situations with families where, one, they wanted the ECE 3 to be a full day program or needed to find something, but I know that family's looking to join when their child's 4 next year. So I know that can play, and into people's schedule is also the bell times, and if it doesn't work with your life and your childcare options. But I think it's nice that we have KidSmart, and then I know the Southwest Y was thinking about doing a program in transporting kids too. So the Y could be something, if that ends up going through, that could also help us get people. And finally, I know some families, the school they have their child in doesn't work the first semester. And so maybe at the start of the calendar year, maybe there will be students looking to enroll, or maybe it is worth at least mentioning to people that we know.
So that part, Cole, is a little tricky just because of the way the choice process works. And so second semester, like having students join second semester is a very different process than being on the wait list. The wait list is actually K through 6 closed for the year. And so the wait list won't be available again until we go through choice again next year. So there is a different process of families, but it has to be fairly egregious as to why they might be looking to move schools at semester. And that's just some of the pieces that are put in place. To your other points, yeah, I know that the ECE 3 can be really hard especially for working families, because the children really are here like 3 hours or less. So unless you are able to use KidSmart or the Southwest YMCA, or you have a family member who might be able to help you out with it while you're working, that can definitely be okay or troublesome. Our numbers are, in 3 and 4 year olds, we're not quite where we are, but their wait list process is different, and we can continue to take children off the wait list for 3s and 4s through April. So that whole process is a little bit different. And so with our 4 year olds just having started last week, We were just looking to get our primary classes settled, and then we'll start looking at adding 3 and 4-year-olds off of our wait list. And I know you had a middle point in there, but I did the first and the last and kind of forgot the middle one.
Oh, just the bell times and how they
yeah.
can be challenging if you're trying to make it work, and other schools offer different bell times. And so I think that's some of the problem that came up as well.
And I am expecting that we may be looking at adjusting our bell times next year if we can. To me, it doesn't make sense for us to have school till 4:15 in the afternoon when we're unair conditioned and it's hot and we're having to call heat days because it's so hot in our building. To me, it makes more sense that we should be starting a little earlier, or, an hour earlier. And, I don't know how that will help. The problem is the way DPS's systems run is that we won't get that information about if our bell times are changing until after choice has finished and people have made their first round choice. So anyway, I see there are a couple of questions. I'm going to take those, but then I'd like to move on just because we're almost at 6 o'clock and we still have quite a bit to cover. And I would like to go home tonight in full transparent disclosure. Bell times are determined in coordination with the transportation department. So to change a bell time, you submit a request with a rationale for that to the transportation department. And this year they really worked to consolidate routes to try and make sure they could support all the routes. And I would say we have good success in the morning and some mixed successes in the afternoon right now. So that was Lisa's question. Casey?
So my question is regarding if we get children after count, because October is what counts, does that even matter? I mean, do we get kids in January? It really doesn't matter.
Well, right. So if kids come in second semester, whatever happens in count is done. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So the long and the short of it is I wanted to make this aware because it's important for CSC to understand this, because this is part of the background information we'll need when we do move into budget season in January, and to start thinking about some of these strategies that we want to put together to support our school's enrollment and keeping it strong. But there is no impact on current staffing, and we'll be either requesting budget assistance or making some adjustment with some of the savings so that it won't be at any detriment to what we had budgeted for this school year. Okay. All right. Oh gosh, we have a lot left. Holy cow. All right, this screen is our school's data for where we ended at the end of last year. This data speaks specifically to where we were with our early literacy. So our children reading at Tier 1, which is at grade level, Tier 2, which is 1 year below grade level, and Tier 3, which is 2 or more years below grade level. Our target last year was that we would have 70% of our kindergarten through 3rd graders reading at grade level. So you see that color coding there just to show you that 3rd grade was above that target. Kindergarten was really close to approaching that target, but last year's 1st and 2nd graders were below where we had hoped for meeting that target. We also had a goal of Tier 3 at being 9% or less K through 3. So we had only 4 children in 3rd grade, 11% reading significantly below grade level, but then our highest grade level was that 2nd grade block. So I'm giving you all this data and this context just to kind of get you to our unified improvement plan and our major improvement strategies for the year, okay? On this slide, you see at the top is our whole school data for literacy for upper elementary. So again, Tier 1 means at grade level, Tier 2, 1 year below grade level, Tier 3, 2 or more years below grade level. So you see our goal last year for that was 55%. So you see 5th grade approaching that goal. You see 6th grade being significantly below it. You see In tier 3, fourth grade had our lowest percentage of tier 3 students, while sixth grade had our highest percent of tier 3 students. Then the second chart is showing our data at the end of the year. And this is iReady, I should clarify. This is either iStation for that first slide with early literacy assessments, or iReady for our upper elementary literacy and our 3rd through 6th grade math. We did not have CMAS data this year that we could use in a way that would allow us to predict trends, because we had such inconsistent testing, and we had some grades taking only literacy and some grades taking only math. So that's why we're not looking at any CMAS data, but looking at our own internal assessment platform, which is called either iStation or iReady. So that second table reflects the same data for math. So we had our highest performance of being on grade level in 6th grade, with our lowest performance of last year's 4th graders. But it was interesting, our 4th graders had the lowest percentage of children significantly below grade level, with our 6th graders being our highest percentage of significantly below grade level. So I'm giving you this information just to let you know, this is what our instructional leadership team, which Christy is a member of our instructional leadership team as well, but it's also our senior team leads, and Maria, who's also on CSC but was unable to attend tonight, she's also a member of our instructional leadership team. We talked in more depth than I'm sharing tonight with that data, and we came up with these major improvement strategies in service of our unified improvement plan. And so I'm just going to stop talking for a minute and let everyone take a look at these major improvement strategies. And if you just give me a thumbs up when you've had a chance to look at that, and I will see if everybody's had time. Okay, from those that I can see, I've seen several thumbs up, so I'm going to go ahead and advance the slide. So with these major improvement strategies, one of our goals is to really build the capacity of the school leadership and our teachers to deliver culturally responsive education that supports changes to systems and structures to promote equity. So we are in the process as a staff of creating a definition school-wide of what equity means, and making sure that we're focusing on multiple aspects of equity, not necessarily just thinking about race, but also incorporating gender, language learners, students with disabilities, but really being comprehensive with that definition of what equity means and having conversations around that. We are planning this year to do an audit and a review of classroom materials and what we need to update or supplement to make sure our children see themselves represented, or their families represented in our classrooms. And then that, like I said, then a bigger systems audit to see what systems we may have in place that we need to change to make sure we're not perpetuating bias, but that we're working to actively mitigate it. And then we're continuing our professional development over the course of the year as a school around equity and instruction. We did a lot of work last year on reflecting on our own biases and how that impacts our practices. And so teachers will be continuing that work a little more individually this year, but thinking more on a school systems level of what we need to do as a school to make sure we are breaking down any barriers that may be preventing us from supporting the needs of all of our children. And one of the things we've talked about is transitioning teachers to using the Flyer app, so that families who may speak a different language can receive information in a language that is used in their home, because the Flyer, that's one of the reasons we chose the Flyer app. So starting to have more classrooms use that as their communication platform. So we're in the process of making that transition. Our second major improvement strategy is around instructional collaboration. And so we are working to implement 4-week cycles that we're calling Plan, Do, Study, Act, which actually comes out of this lovely text right here called the Montessori Assessment Playbook. But working on using resources from National Center for Montessori in the public sector to implement these reflective and planning cycles with our teams so that they are having opportunity to plan collaboratively to best support the needs of all our children. We're using Montessori observational data points to supplement the data points from iStation. So we've got all those data points that we talked about at the beginning, but that one assessment might not really truly represent where a child is at. And so we feel really strongly as a Montessori school that we're using additional data points to build that body of evidence to support what children need. And then getting back to this year, Montessori practices such as lesson and album study and child study differentiated across the levels, primary, lower, and upper elementary, to support that instructional collaboration. And then as the school year progresses, we really would like to try and find time to do what we in education call vertical planning, so that primary gets to collaborate with lower and lower gets to collaborate with upper, and so that we're thinking about where our children need to go, not just academically, but social emotionally as well, and that we're preparing our children for the next level. And then the third major improvement strategy is around early literacy and developing systems that are going to allow us to track students' individual early literacy data. And so we're going to be myself, Kathy Wyatt, and Liz Lewis-Riggs, who both of them are what DPS calls senior team leads, are going to be working individually with teachers to have individual data meetings to look at not just the iStation assessment, but the broader body of evidence, so that we can think about what we need to plan for early literacy growth. We're also going to do something similar with upper elementary, focusing on their math and literacy data. And then give teachers opportunity to dig into their Montessori albums and identify specific Montessori lessons that are going to support their growth in these content areas. Partner with our literacy interventions, which we have Liz Lewis-Riggs and Michael Cordova serving in that role this year, and our senior team leads. And we've already been training our classroom assistants on some early literacy practices to provide children with multiple opportunities to practice early literacy skills. And then there's a new tool that DPS has provided to schools this year called Heggerty. And so our intervention teachers and some of our special education teachers are beginning to pilot the use of Heggerty strategies and materials to support early literacy growth. Okay, that was a lot of information. I'm going fast. Because one of the things, for those of you who don't know me very well, is I try as best as I can to facilitate tight meetings and respect people's times. And so when I say an hour, I try not to go over too long, just because I know people have children and lives and other things they need to do. So I start to get nervous if I know a meeting's running late. So I know I'm going fast. One other component of the Unified Improvement Planning, though, is a Black Excellence Plan. And so let me drop this link in the chat box. Give me just 1 second. So a few years ago, oops, wrong box. A few years ago, DPS's Board of Education created this commitment to Black excellence resolution. And so this is a board document, and this came out of the work that the African American Task Force did with DPS around 2017, I believe it was. And so one of the pieces of this work has been that, as part of the Unified Improvement Planning, that every school will create a Black excellence plan, thinking specifically about what a school is going to do to support our Black students and families. And so our Black Excellence Plan really consists of the strategies you see here on this slide. Historically, well, I shouldn't say historically, I should say in the time that I've been at Denison, we haven't had a very large number of Black families. We do have an increased number of Black families at Denison this year, which is nice to see, that we have more families choosing Montessori. But I think one of the things that I would like to see is to have more representation. And so really what I would like for us to think about this year is to create intentional opportunities to increase Black family engagement, whether it's through CSC, whether it's through FDM, whether it's through the street team, but just like to see more opportunities for Black family engagement. I think this applies to our families that are multilingual as well. And would like to see more representation of our community as a whole, across all of our different ways that we have to be engaged. But starting with this Black Excellence Plan, thinking specifically around our Black families. And really then, like I said, just these other strategies that are identified here. So I'm going to pause for a minute because that was a lot, and just see if there are any questions or comments. It doesn't seem to be any. If you think of things, please either raise your hand or drop them in the chat box. But that was the end of the section on the Unified Improvement Planning and our major improvement strategies and our Black Excellence Plan. So now I have a blank slide because no one shared any suggestions for new business with me. But if there are any topics that folks would like to have either added to our next agenda, and I see both Christy and Cole. So Cole, have you go first, and then Christy?
Sure. I'm sorry I didn't email you about this, but I wanted to mention that the playground equipment that spins, that they call it the donut, that's gotten really squeaky, and I don't know if anybody's noticed that, but
no, you when I'm out there at Resource, I hear so much like squealing sounds of joy. I don't hear any squeaking from the donut, but I will talk to Enrique about that. Christy?
Natalie, I was wondering if we could have a brief discussion about maybe meeting at 5:15 so that everybody can get home in time to do this meeting. It's a 40-minute drive for me in the afternoon, and so it's really tight.
Are there any comments or concerns around that suggestion from Christy? So for those that are designated members of CSC, if you are in agreement with meeting at 5:15, if you want to drop it in the chat box and just say yay or nay. Okay, it looks like we've got consensus there around that with our voting members. So I didn't see Christina. Did you vote or did I just not see it? She did? Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, thank you. I just must have popped before I was watching. Okay, so that leads, unless there's anything else for new business, that leads us in. I actually have the wrong time on the slide. I put the ending time instead of the starting time, but this should be 5:15. So we're scheduled for our next meeting on the second Tuesday of October, which is the 12th. And we'll be meeting starting at 5:15, and we will watch for communication from our new chairperson, Miss Christina, to send out the reminders in the agenda. And we will go from there unless there is anything else that we have before we close our meeting this evening. If not, I would like to recommend we close the meeting for the evening. Thank you all for attending. I appreciate your time and thoughtfulness. I loved having you all here. And I'm going to stop recording. And then Christina, let you and I touch base soon to help with your transition into the chairperson role. Okay? Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you, Cole. I'll get them put in. I really appreciate you doing that tonight. All right.